Hi, everybody. This is a work group device management meeting, April 28th. All right, so we just have one item on the agenda today, which is to go over um, discuss what we're currently looking at or considering for 137. Um, I'll share it, Patrick, if you want to. We can.
Yeah. So I think there are a few uncontroversial ones. Extended resources, I agree that can and should go to stable. We've done a lot of work on making it mature. Resource claim status, that almost got to stable in 136, and we just didn't get the graduation merged. So that's also uncontroversial. Device taints and tolerations, that's the one that I'm driving. I got a few questions whether it would promote. So I think there is interest, and I think it's ready from all that I can tell. So yeah, also agreed. Consumable capacity seems ready. We basically need to go through the graduation criteria, but I think I have no concerns with going to stable. Partitionable devices. There was one open PR right now with a performance analysis, and I would still like to hear from Morten on that, because the numbers are, depending on how you set it up, not as good as for simpler devices, but that may be expected. We don't know. It's basically, if you're exhausting devices and options, you end up with more backtracking, and that kills performance. So yeah, we may have to look at that. So with a question mark, I would say. Resource health status in pod status. You had that as stable for 137. And I left a comment on the beta, in the previous beta,
I see
pointing
that.
out yeah, that's the comment. I think that needs more work. I almost was tempted to block beta because really it was promoted to beta without any real world feedback.
Yeah, we
Without
need we need
it
to implement that in some drivers that yeah in our
Yeah,
framework like that's what
right,
makes sense.
right. And then once we start doing that with real drivers, we'll find the other points that I mentioned. That right now it's not obvious how a DRA driver even implements it. Documentation is missing, and the API is fairly poor because a DRA driver basically has to implement the additional gRPC interface. That's how you do it. And I don't
Right.
think that should be how it's done, because that will be a breaking change once we graduate to stable, because the gRPC interface changes. So we need a better mechanism. I already left some comments in the beta graduation or some PR earlier, and I can repeat it elsewhere. But we first need to agree that someone is going to tackle this. And until they do, it basically just stays what it is.
Okay, so
So,
I'm gonna say oops. You continue. I'm gonna just put some of your comments in
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, yeah, download API. I think that also is ready for beta. We have a few points that we need to discuss with Jordan around versioning of what information should be the default, or which versions should be the default generated by a DRA driver. But I think we know what Ale and we know what we want, and we just can go ahead and make it the right default when we graduate to beta. uh, Resource claim support for workloads. I don't know enough about potential gaps. Well, I left one comment.
Yeah,
The current alpha to beta graduation implies that you have a cluster that is potentially in an inconsistent state where the API server is already the next version, but the control plane, in particular the kube controller manager, is still from 136. And in that configuration, which is inevitable if you do an incremental cluster update, we get the behavior from the 136 alpha, which is to basically ignore that there is anything about workloads, even though the
yeah,
API server has allowed that field to be set. And then we get per pod resource claims created for a workload that ultimately can't work that way.
So so alphas are not upgradable, right? So
Yeah, but at some point you have to upgrade. So are you saying that the alpha to beta graduation basically doesn't need to be flawless or fault to?
correct. Alphas are not. We don't consider alphas upgradable, right? You can't just because you got.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so we can still go to beta, but we do need to fix that right before we go to beta, so that in the next upgrade, because betas have to be upgradable, but alphas don't. So I don't think that's a stopper, but we
Okay.
should.
Good. Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay. I was assuming that people. Well, yeah. Well, it's not strictly an alpha feature that you're upgrading. You're rolling out a beta feature. So you are doing the upgrade from 136 alpha disabled. Nothing
alpha
in your
disable.
cluster.
Okay.
Yeah, if it was enabled, you wouldn't have a problem. But it is a production ready cluster with the defaults. Everything is all feature gates are at their default. And then you start rolling out 137.
And the new you hit the new API server when you're creating the object.
Yes.
So you
So
create it
to a
controls
user,
that.
yeah, before the upgrade is complete.
Got it. Okay.
And that's inevitable for every single feature that graduates to beta.
Right.
So you always will have that inconsistent state where a cluster looks like it has the beta API because the API server already has it, but the rest of the cluster doesn't. And there is this one question of the production readiness about versions queue and what happens. And people just put something in there, but I don't think really this particular scenario really hasn't been thought through completely. I did did make it a line item for the SIG architecture forum
Yeah.
meeting last week or so,
Yeah.
where I basically proposed a third approach of handling feature gates already at alpha. And that basically is you have some code that is alpha, it knows that it needs to do something, but the feature is off. Instead of falling through to the old code, you basically say, no, I can't do this operation. I can't create this resource claim in this case. And that makes it safe to roll out the beta feature, the 137, because in that version skew scenario, the API server allows it to create a pod and a resource claim template and a per pod and the pod group. The Alpha Cube API, Cube Controller Manager sees that it's supposed to be something that isn't enabled, doesn't do any harm to the cluster, and instead it waits until itself gets updated. And once the cluster is completely upgraded, we get the per pod group resource claim.
Right. It's
And
I don't know what this is. I'm not going to do anything instead of
yeah,
oh, I'm just going to do what I used to do, even though the
yeah,
meaning is
right,
changed. Yeah.
right.
um, okay. So
I,
that then
I yeah,
yeah,
I don't know whether that is now a reason to do another alpha.
right.
I think we've had that situation for a long time and no one has really complained about it. There
Right.
must have been similar situations in the past when other features graduated to beta with on by
Well, there were
default. And
huge problems, remember, with Sidecar, like because it got added
yeah,
to
yeah,
the right, and it caused all kinds of problems, right? So yes,
yeah.
it's been there, but that
Okay.
doesn't mean it's been a good experience.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I
It
let's not.
it
Yeah, John's here. I don't know. What do you think, John? Do you understand the issue Patrick's raising?
Yeah, I think so. I do have a PR out at least with the how we want to handle that going forward, and I did update or I have a PR open to update the KEP. Um, yeah, I don't know if I have any strong opinion on whether we need a 130 or another alpha in 137 or not, but I'll keep thinking about that.
So the
uh,
underlying feature you depend on, the pod group API, is going to beta. So I was hoping to keep those in sync. but
I'm fine with it, knowing that this particular scenario isn't being handled as well as it could have been.
okay.
So
Okay. Let's keep it at beta for now, and then we can always change our minds later if we decide it's too much. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it will cause much problems in practice. I mean, people will hopefully finish their rollout fairly quickly and not start creating new workloads while they are updating. So it's more a theoretic problem than something that we expect to hit in practice. And the difference compared to the sidecars is that we are not having the long versions queue between old kubelet and new control plane.
Right.
I think that's the big difference. Here we are talking about a short time window when a cluster is being updated, and the kubelet version queue was much longer.
Right. We even talked about that, I think, in the meeting that in practice, and it's even in our documentation that we expect control plane components to all be on the same version except during an upgrade. So it should be a matter of, hours, not months or years.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's move on. Native resource requests. Yeah. Alpha. I think you are planning a second alpha, so that's expected. Resource availability visibility. I think you already left that open. At this point, I think we need feedback.
Yeah, we need feedback. And there's other things we want to add. Like if you look at partitionable, like it doesn't give you it doesn't have, the support for partitionable or consumable is either not there or limited. We talked about different things. I don't know if, so, and then of course I need to know that people are available to implement it too. So, okay, yeah, that one's open still. I'll follow up with him, and I don't see Norelden on the call. I'll follow up with him and see what he thinks. So what would be really nice would be to be able to get like even more granular detail, like in the partitionable case, or sort of to be able to name the devices that were like, oh, I have this many of this partition left, as opposed to right now it's like it works well when all the devices are homogeneous, but in a partitionable case they're not, and it's like not that as useful. So that would be another alpha for sure if we were going to add that level of granularity. So all right.
Yeah. Device binding conditions. I don't know if we have Tsubasa on the call today, but they definitely would like to go to stable. But I'm afraid I don't think that the feature is ready.
I don't know that we have enough real world experience with it to take it to stable.
Yeah.
There's an addition that could be useful. I haven't responded. I've got an open Slack message from him. I haven't had a chance to respond to, but like that's a new API field. I don't know if we need a whole new KEP for that, or if we can do that straight to beta. I don't know. So the behavior is all the same. It's just you put it on you can add a binding condition on the resource claim, and then that gets merged with the binding conditions off the resource slice, and that allows some additional interesting use cases that are more under the control of the user. I was thinking about this last night, and I think I convinced myself it's okay. I had the thought that, oh man, somebody could put a fake binding condition on there, and then they could it would pause binding, but it would hold the resources aside. But then I realized that's all controlled by quota anyway. So they'd only be using up what they're allowed to quota. So I think it's like from a denial of service type of view, it's like they're using up their own quota, and it's probably okay.
My own thinking is, well, I have another potential extension that is, if you want to implement the binding controller locally on a node, we would need some way of filtering resource claims by node. And that is a real question about how are people implementing this, where we don't know yet how it'll play out unless people start using it. So I think that's another reason why we need more users of this, other DRA drivers that
I think,
do it
yeah.
differently than Fujitsu with composable disaggregated infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. List types.
Yeah. Seems ready. I have one thing that I want to call out. I think the implicit assumption has always been that we change our PCI root attribute to something that can be a single value, a string, or a list of strings. That's what actually this feature is designed for, so that you can do a line on something that is on a single PCI root or other devices, perhaps on many of them, including the one that you want to match against.
Right.
As prospective or aspiring API reviewer, I have to point out that this is strictly speaking an API break for that one standardized attribute, because there might be cell expressions that a user has written based on the assumption that the value type of that attribute is a string and nothing else. We have helper code to deal with this, but we don't know whether all users are using that helper code now. So strictly speaking, this is an API break. But I think it's early enough to make such a break. I don't know how to do it. We would basically need to change our documentation of something that people may already be using, but
We have to put an action
yeah.
required release note. We probably should have
Yeah.
done it in the last. Yeah. Like,
Well, we haven't changed the type yet. We haven't changed the attribute. So we haven't done it yet. We have just added the alpha support for making that change.
Okay.
But if we do it, say, with the idea that, well, I don't know whether we can do it at beta or if it even has to be GA. That's an interesting question. Whether that feature has to be GA and can't be rolled back before DRA drivers can start publishing PCI roots that are lists. Well, no, I think once it's enabled, you can use it. So but yeah, this is something that we need to think about. I think the what happens if turned off thing, that is standard feature development work. We still had some questions around that. We had exactly those discussions with Jordan about what do you do if you encounter a resource slice with a list type and the feature is off? What's the right behavior? We have those questions and we still need to sort them out, I think.
I think that cell is new and we're discovering rough edges as we go.
Well, the unversioned nature of attributes, that
Yes.
was anticipated. We
Yeah.
just thought that we were doing the right thing and would get it right forever with the initial definition. And well, we were wrong about that one.
I mean, yes, they're inherently less stable than the real API, right? Because they're driver provided.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, then you have some new ones. I haven't looked at the shared consumable capacity, but I think the proposal, we discussed the proposal. Yeah, I think it makes sense to start working on it. I don't know where we are, whether we have a CAP PR already.
I don't know either.
Yeah. So it's me. So the CAP PR is open. I'm just fixing some of the initial comments, but yeah, it's open.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. So yeah, now that we have this list here, I think we'll start being more active on the reviews. But it sounds like someone already commented on it, which is good because I haven't looked at it. I think, don't remember. Yeah, and then preemption. I don't think we have a PR. Morten just said that he will work on it. And the third new one is device compatibility groups. We discussed the concept. I know what it's about. I've seen the CAP PR, and Omar has been asking urgently to get reviews. I think Ale this week volunteered to do a first pass and wants to do some updates. So I haven't looked at it either yet, but I know it's out there.
Yeah. So a couple other things to note that I'm thinking about right now. In the native resource requests one, it's looking like it might be useful to add an explicit device class field. So I have a an enhancements issue around this idea of on device classes putting fields that are declarative but give the scheduler more information. So like node local device, right? So you put a Boolean in the device class that says this is a node local device. And in fact, you would constrain the devices that are part of that class such that only things with node name in the resource slice or the per device node selector, only those with node name could appear in that class. This allows the scheduler to do some things. So there's like a scheduler optimization called what do they call it? Optimistic batching, where it signs a pod. It calculates a signature for a pod, like a hash basically, and then if it's got sees like 10 pods that all have the same hash in the queue, it doesn't like rerun all of the pipeline. It just is able to reuse the same one kind of over and over, same information over and over. And when you have a DRA device, when you have any claims right now, it has to kind of punt on that optimization because they might be shared between pods or they might be multi-node, and then the pod scheduling is no longer independent, right? So the signature. So if we had two flags on the device class that said, hey, this claim can't be shared, or this request can't be shared, this device can't be shared, that's useful for the native resource requests. And and this is a node local device, then when both of those are true, then you can hit that optimization. I don't know how important that optimization is. It's so that's why that CAP wasn't really pursued yet. But when talking with Praveen, we think that in the case of the native resources, there are certain types of requests that can be shared and certain ones that can't, and we might have to it would be useful potentially to have that in the device class. So that's one thing I just wanted to raise. I'll just but it might just come into play in the specific caps that are, rather than having a separate cap for it just becomes part of that other cap. And then we have some use cases around DRA devices, especially in the multi-node case, that may not need an on-node driver. But that's right now you have to put a dummy driver in because Kubelet needs something registered with it in order to actually, for the pod to actually run. So non-node claims, or I don't know what to call it, but that I don't even have an issue for that yet, but I'm just kind of like bringing it to people's attention.
There is an issue, not necessarily a CAP issue, but we do have something in our dashboard from Laura, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I asked Laura to look and see if there's to think about that a while back, but she's not working on it anymore. So I'll take a look at it. And
posted the link to the issue in the chat.
Oh, okay. There are one or two other things, but nothing that is well developed enough to really have a discussion about it. So I'll try to add those in, and we'll just see whether we have time for them. So any other discussion on this? This is kind of the only agenda item today. So happy to chat with folks, or if people, if nobody has any comments, we can end early. Yeah, Gaurav.
Hey everyone. So I wanted to bring up a doc which I have added to the agenda item. It is titled Proposal NRI Plugin Execution for DRA. It's added to the future meeting agenda. So if people get a chance, please to take a look and see, particularly I think John, Patrick, and I don't see, okay, I don't see the other leads here. So if you get a chance, please do take a look. I am trying to understand if we accept adding some kind of a new field to the container, the CRI API, which has better support for both NRI in addition to the CDI devices field that already exists. The problem that I'm trying to solve is already highlighted over there, and I'm just trying to figure out if there's some feedback that I can give. I would appreciate it.
Didn't you bring this to the meeting already, or was that a different meeting you brought it to?
I think yes, but at that point we didn't discuss in that much detail. So I thought, yeah, maybe I'll.
Yeah, so that DRA plus NRI is there's been a number of things that this is coming up. So better support, whether it's this or this and other things. I think it's
right.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm not the right person to talk about this. I don't know the NRI interface at all, or low-level container runtime things. So
yeah,
I have to punt on this one.
That's fine. It's basically just for everybody. Like there's a sort of race condition where there's certain cases where, like, if the NRI plugin like restarts, or if the like you can end up in a state where there's a race condition where if there's a failure, the two things can come out of sync. So we need to pass some information from the DRA driver to kind of be like, don't run this pod unless this NRI is available still, right? Because basically the NRI could die, and then it could run, and then the NRI never gets called, and then it comes back, right? So there's just a little, like, a weird failure condition that we could run into. That's one of the things, but there could be others. Varun?
Yeah, hi. I wanted to bring up a challenge I was facing as a DRA vendor, and I was hoping to get your inputs on it. So I work on the DRA driver for NVIDIA GPUs, and one of the use cases we have is to run the GPU either on the NVIDIA driver or run it on the VFIO driver for pass-through. And then we need to be able to dynamically switch between those two modes depending on the workloads. And one of the challenges with that is that discovery of the GPUs become very difficult when we take it out of the NVIDIA driver, as we barely have any metadata other than what's on the sysfs. And with resource slices, Kubelet would delete any resource slices after 30 seconds of the plugin not being present. For example, if you were doing an upgrade of the driver, then if it took longer than 30 seconds, then your resource slice goes away. And without the resource slice, it's very hard to maintain state of what GPUs you had advertised before and what they were named and everything about it. So if we rediscover everything from scratch, after the resource slice goes away, then our issue is that it's hard to come back with the same set of devices that we had previously advertised. And if we had partitionable devices implemented, then it becomes more tricky because now you keep changing what you advertise when your plugin's restarting.
Is there a problem? You're saying so today the way it works is it reads in the existing resource slice and reconciles it somehow. And
We don't, but I was hoping we could use the resource slice as the source of truth, because we always get the full state in the resource slice. And
That sounds wrong to me. Resource slices are not guaranteed to survive if your driver is down. The admin might decide to delete them. There's no protection against that. So what you should be doing is that you keep some local state file in your driver on the node that is authoritative of what you have previously done, and then you pick up based on that and not what was published before in the API server.
okay, so you're saying the source of truth we should try to keep should be node local and not try to use the slices at all, right?
Yes.
yeah, definitely. Because you like Patrick, users can just delete those. They could be like, and then they expect them to just get recreated, right? The assumption in the design is that the driver is the source of truth, and it's publishing the resource slice to inform everybody else, but it owns the source of truth itself, either through discovery, or it sounds like in your case through discovery and a state file would be the right option.
So the resource slice is expected to be ephemeral, and
all right, see you later, Patrick. I mean, it's generally it shouldn't be, but it can be. Yes, it's expected. It shouldn't be considered, completely durable, I guess. Like we don't expect it to come and go frequently, but yeah, it's ephemeral in that sense. Yeah.
okay.
Should it be reconciled only on the restart, or like how often should it be reconciled?
Whenever it restarts, yeah.
I mean, the driver, like in any, I would, so, okay, you could do that. You could do it just on restart. If people make out of band changes, somebody logs into the node as root and reconfigures MIG partitioning on some device, then they have to restart the driver in order to for those to take effect. So that's really just up to you whether that's how you want it to work or not. To me, it would make sense to periodically reconcile, regardless, to catch any out of band changes. But I mean, it's kind of probably not that important. Gaurav?
Just wanted to highlight the case for DRANet as well, where we actually came up with a need which required us to maintain some local state, when we actually have now started maintaining a local state which is persisted to some database or some file locally. So I'm seeing more such instances show up, and I think yes, it's generally, I believe, acceptable for local state to exist for DRA drivers. In particular, we are using bbolt. If that example helps you, I have shared the link, but just to put it out there, it seems like it's a common thing.
Thanks, Gaurav. I'll take a look.
All right. Any other topics? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks.